A new documentary is in the works about the discoveries of aerospace illustrator Mark McCandlish. He says information has been shared with him about an alien reproduction vehicle built by the military using technology that has been back-engineered from alien technology. McCandlish says that in 1988, he and a friend were planning on attending an air show at Norton Air Force Base. McCandlish ended up having to cancel due to a last-minute illustration needed by Popular Science. However, his friend Brad Sorensen did go, and through a well-connected acquaintance was able to gain entrance to a secured area of the base with a special display for politicians and military personnel with high-level security clearances. Sorensen told McCandlish that in this display were 3 flying saucers floating above the ground. They made no sound. One of them had the side panels removed so that you could see inside. There was also a monitor showing a video of these craft being test flown. They made hopping maneuvers and then shot straight up at incredible speeds, all while making no sound. The craft were referred to as Alien Reproduction Vehicles and also had the nickname the Flux Liner. McCandlish says he believes these are part of a secret program that has been around for decades. Using his friend's description, McCandlish sketched the vehicle. He has since done research on how he believes the technology works. He says they use zero-point energy, a concept originally theorized by Albert Einstein. The feature-length documentary on McCandlish's research is titled Zero Point: The Story of Mark McCandlish and the Flux Liner. It is being made by James Allen, a filmmaker, photographer, and 3D designer from Savannah, Georgia. We contacted Allen on Skype to ask him about his movie. Hello, we are here with James Allen, and you've got a new documentary coming out, Zero Point and the Flux Liner here on the work of Mark McCandlish.
Have you watched the film?
I've seen parts. I'm very familiar with the case, though,
Okay.
and I didn't want to see too much so that we can plug, get people excited and checking it out.
It's called Zero Point: The Story of Mark McCandlish and the Flux Liner. Yeah, it's a feature-length documentary basically on Mark's story and the stuff around it.
Right. So how did you come across the story and what got you interested in doing this?
Basically, a friend of mine, first of all, he kind of showed me the Kerry Cassidy's, the Project Camelot, and a lot of those videos and interviews, and then I found the Disclosure Conference video, and basically I saw the 2001 Disclosure Conference. Totally blew my mind, and sort of changed a lot of my ideas about the whole UFO thing, and Mark seemed like a really interesting case, sort of different than a lot of the other ones, and I noticed he was either LinkedIn or Facebook, and so I sort of friended him. And so I got to talk to him more and more about his story, and I was in the MFA program at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, and my original thesis project fell through, and so I said, Mark, how about a documentary about you and your deal? And he's like, okay. So me and my collaborator ended up flying out there and interviewing him over 3 days, and just sort of built this feature documentary narrative about him, based on his singular experiences.
Right. Now for Mark, his whole story kind of starts in 1988 with this Norton Air Show. Could you kind of explain that?
Okay, yeah. Mark went to college with a guy named Brad Sorensen, and he and Brad were pretty good buddies at the Pasadena College of Art, and they hadn't seen each other for like 10 years, and that was, I guess, in the late 70s, they graduated, and then they hadn't seen each other for 10 years, and Brad saw Mark's illustration on the cover of Popular Science, and contacted him, and he said, hey, how you doing? And they were going to sort of have a little reunion after 10 years at this air show at Norton Air Force Base. Mark couldn't do it because he got a commission to do another cover of Popular Science. Mark was very successful in the late 80s. He had, he was working for all these major contractors, major publications. And Mark couldn't make it to the air show, so Brad went, just by himself, but apparently with a high-level military aerospace executive of some kind. Brad got in to see a classified air show at a different site than the one at Norton, and subsequently told Mark about what he saw later, which happened to be anti-gravity, man-made anti-gravity vehicles, possibly reverse engineered from alien technology.
Right where we were sitting there at his table, he just kind of sketched out with an ink pen on a piece of legal-size white paper and put some some little handwritten call-outs around the edges that described the number of capacitor plates in each one of the little sections, that there were they were so wide at the end, and the crew compartment was definitely about 12 feet in diameter. Just kind of put all these things down as close as he could remember to the way they existed. And so I sat down with all this information, and I just began sort of drafting it out.
The flux liner.
The flux liner.
And they called
ARV.
this. What's that?
The ARV.
Yeah. Right, the Alien Reproduction Vehicle.
Yes, sir.
So what's interesting about your documentary is I think you go into, his theories behind this more so than anything I've seen before, and his ideas about the propulsion. And even, I don't know if you know this, but we actually have Wendell Stevens' photo archives, and so...
And I wanted to thank you guys because I actually used 2 of your photographs in the film. There's one sort of a close-up, and there's one that's sort of a lot of sky background, and those were actually sent over from a former employee of yours. And so I think I thanked you guys. Well, if I didn't, I will.
Yeah, that's really cool. Maybe you can explain, because that's an interesting aspect there, how you use those pictures and the significance.
Well, Mark wasn't just happy with Brad's story, so he basically sought out and found a bunch of corroboration for this. And Gordon Novell and George Ulick, who we met early on, knew Wendell Stevens, who had the Wendell Stevens archive, which you guys have subsequently, I guess you guys have that now, right? You have his entire collection, which is awesome. And I have to talk to you about going out there and scanning that for you, because it's about time it was digital, so we should do that.
Well, we have been digitizing a lot, and it's a lot of stuff. So yeah, you can definitely come out and check it out. Okay,
but what the story behind that is, it's Harvey Williams' photograph from, I think, 1966, if I'm not mistaken.
67, I think.
67, and it's over Provo, Utah, and it looks like a cruder sort of prototype of the flux liner. It's and Mark describes how the differences kind of make sense as far as the 10, 20-year gap in technology. But that is a really good case. The Condon report made they did a lot of investigation into it. I read some documentation also from you guys' archives about the correspondence between the Condon report people and the interviews with Harvey Williams, and anomalies in the case, like Harvey's like, well, they sent me back inferior copies of the original slides. They said that these slides were inconclusive, then why are they keeping the originals and sending me these crappy reproductions? And so I'm really curious as to what happened to those slides. I don't know where they are. I'd like to see them, because apparently those the ones I used in the film are black and white, and the original chromes are in color, and there's apparently a brick red hue to the vehicle itself. So somewhere there's the original images, and I'm sure there's much higher quality imagery of that, which I'd like to get a hold of.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting case, yeah. That and McMinnville.
Right, and with, I guess I'm not sure if we mentioned that McCandlish, like you said, he did a lot of artwork, and he was able to then draw in very detail the ARV and the technical components. Right. And that's what's interesting about these pictures, is that what he drew, at least especially this Harvey Williams photograph, looks very similar to that craft. So he of course speculates then that this technology is being used by the military since at least the late 60s.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I mean, and that was a cool thing about it too, which added some veracity to the account, was that Brad originally said, well, you know, he continues to say off the record that these things look old. They look like they've been in operation, like as working prototypes for a long time. They had dings and, you know, chips and scratches, and it looks like they've been put through their paces as, you know, whatever, like working vehicles for a while before they were on display at Norton, which I thought would kind of make sense.
Right. So, do you know, I was curious about what happened with Brad Sorensen, or if were you able to talk to him, or has anybody been able to?
No, we sent a couple emails back and forth, and he basically didn't deny the account at all. He just said, don't use any of my stuff in your film. I have lawyers in my family. We'll come after you if you do. He was basically, you know, not being a dick, but he was definitely sort of trying to shut me down as directly as possible. And it's interesting because I know for a fact that Brad's been, he will talk to individuals if he feels maybe they have something to offer, or they're like producers, or, you know, he has talked and will talk to people, but, you know, not to me at this point yet. Maybe if I offered a bunch of cash or lied about who I was or something, we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully he comes forward. But as far as the documentary goes, I mean, one of the things, I know we wrote a story a couple days ago because you had a showing in Savannah to kind of let people get a first look and get some feedback.
Scary.
How'd it go?
It went pretty good. It went good. There was like, you know, 30 to 40 people here, which isn't bad for a coffee house. It was shown at a coffee house. And I just worked up the courage yesterday to look through the comment sheets, and they were basically positive. There was, you know, a few scathing reviews and a few glowing reviews, and those sort of cancel each other out. And so in the middle was basically on the positive side, you know, which isn't bad, I figure, for, you know, a rough version of it. So it was good. It was interesting. It was good. And some lively conversations and Q&A after the showing.
Cool, yeah. And how did people accept it? Because these are guys who, an indie film group, right? They watch kind of some films and do kind of a mystery science type of thing with some of them.
Wait, who does?
The
Psychotronic, yeah.
Yeah, the group that did the showing. So it doesn't seem like they're UFO buffs or anything. So how did they accept the info? Did they find it credible?
It was basically, it wasn't so much just the, you know, sort of indie cult film crowd. It was sort of a cross section of a bunch of people that knew a whole bunch about the field and people that didn't know anything about it at all. And so it was sort of there was an article in the Savannah Morning News and an article in the Savannah Connect magazine, which is like a news weekly here. And so it was kind of just a cross section of, you know, just people that, you know, knew about it or not. And I was surprised that, like, some of the comments people said that the science, you know, a lot of the stuff that I thought would be kind of difficult for people to digest, they got it, and they was like, that's really interesting, I want to check this out more. So basically, people seemed open to it and generally intrigued.
That's what I think your film offers that I haven't seen anywhere else, is all of the technical details, because a good portion of it gets pretty technical.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, maybe too technical. What did you think? I mean, as far as that goes.
Well, you know, I get torn, and I don't always think that I'm necessarily a good person to review as far as general public, because I'm so into the topic, so I'm definitely biased.
Yeah.
And so I love the technical stuff, and as a journalist, you know, I kind of feel like, well, the technical stuff needs to be documented, so I appreciate that. But then it is like, is it too much for the general public? So I never know how the average person will feel compared to my view. But I appreciated that, you know, it has more than anything else, getting into the details.
Well, one thing that I thought was really interesting, and one thing that's kind of come up, and, you know, we talk about it, Mark talks about it in the film, is the fact that I got into the configurations a lot because I'm fairly convinced this is a real machine. So if it is a real machine, then detailing as accurately as possible, detailing the actual components, the actual, you know, how things were laid out, what they were made of, and stuff like that. I think it's important, because if this is a functioning chunk of machinery, this is the parts that make that machine work. And one thing that's really interesting is things like, there's aspects of it like the copper elements, the copper capacitor plates and copper wire embedded in glass, a glass-like material. That comes up in purported UFO crash reports, like there's something around either Corona or Roswell about, you know, some kind of, you know, a hole in the side of the craft, and when they looked inside, there was like something running around the circumference of the crew compartment with glass and wires. There's the Vimana talking about the, the iron heating apparatus and the, the mercury engine and things like that. So I thought that working into the technical details and actual components of the machine was interesting in terms of this particular vehicle, but it also seems like it's a basic sort of template configuration for some kind of like insanely concentrated energetic event, some kind of, huge, like an incredible malleable field, which may possibly polarize space-time. So it's sort of maybe a basic engine for interstellar travel.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Right. And that's the hard part. I like how you have the maybes in there here and there too. I mean, what I also appreciated, and see if you found this to be the case, I mean, this story's been a story around, I mean, for quite some time.
Yep.
And so there have been different people to talk about it, which you're able to take advantage of. And it doesn't seem as though all of this has been brought together in one place like you've been able to do.
Well, yeah, in a way I'm kind of surprised that more people haven't sort of picked up on this, because if indeed it's a true story, and like I say, I'm fairly certain that it is, it means that the government military-industrial complex has had functioning field propulsion technology, maybe going back to the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty fucking huge, and this is one of the only instances, besides what, Bob Lazar or Ed Fouché, where they're talking about actual chunks of technology like hardware contact. David Adair is another one, but but as far as something like what Mark has done with taking an eyewitness account and fleshing it out and finding corroboration for it, finding physicists. This is one thing that really impressed me about Mark's deal, was that he knew Tom Bearden already, which is probably one of the big reasons why Brad confided in him, because Brad talked about zero-point energy, and Mark's like, oh yeah, scalar energy, sure. And Brad's like, really? So he started telling him more and more about it. But the idea that this is functional technology, and certain a certain strata of our society has been playing around with it on our dime since the 60s, that's kind of a huge thing. And so I'm kind of mystified as why a lot more people haven't picked up on this and like really, and sort of like hammered on Lockheed or Grumman or whoever to say, are you guys really doing this? I actually called a spokesman at Lockheed and asked her straight up. I'm like, so what's going on with your electrogravitics program? And she's like, well, we're not at liberty to discuss those programs. And I'm like, really, why not? And she's like, well, it might threaten our competitive advantage. And I really wish I'd gotten that on film or tape. Because my next documentary, Tom, are you listening? I want to do a sort of a investigative documentary on specifically on anti-gravity in the aerospace industry.
Cool.
And in the military, because I'm pretty sure they have it, and actually getting people on camera, on tape and on camera, sort of either denying it or sort of diplomatically,
skating around it.
Right. So I think that'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that would be cool. So when are you planning on, I think what you're going to kick off a Kickstarter to help finish this up. It looks pretty finished, but you need to wrap some stuff up with it, huh?
Yeah, there's sound issues. There's a lot. The graphics could be a lot better. The CGI could be a lot better. There's a lot of stuff that could be, would be improved for sure.
So is the Kickstarter up, or is that, when do you plan on
it's
doing
pending.
it?
I need to cut a new trailer and a pitch video.
Okay.
And I'm looking for, I don't know, well, it'll be on Kickstarter, but we're looking for in the range of 10 grand or more.
Okay.
For the first, basically to finish it up. The goal is to get it finished up by November 12th of this year, because that is the 25th anniversary of the air show at Norton Air Force Base.
Oh, cool. And then you got to submit it to the UFO festival here.
Yeah, well, the idea is to submit it to places like Sundance and South by Southwest and, Tribeca and stuff like that, actually submit it for real.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. So where can people go to keep up with the updates?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll let you know.
Okay.
There will be a Kickstarter, so I'll send all the links to that in the next. It should be up in the next month.
Okay, cool. All right, we will definitely let people know too when that gets up. So thanks a lot for taking time to talk to us.
Yeah, no, thank you guys.
There's no place that I know of that brings together all of McCandlish's research like this movie plans to. It's so technical in nature that it makes for a compelling case that this theorized zero-point energy really exists. Has this mysterious energy been tapped into to power super high-speed spacecraft in secret by the military? You'll have to check out the documentary and decide for yourself.